Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Parent Pod. This is our weekly show where you join us for info, fun, prizes, questions, stories, and a lot of information. We're bringing to you experts, parents, and other community businesses in the area to help with outreach and help get you the information you need. So I hope the kids are all situated or in bed already because this hour's for you. We don't have a bevy of the week this week. So we're welcome to bring whatever you want. I have my rosé today because we're going to be talking about a really crucial topic right now. We're going to be talking about special ed in the age of COVID. And joining us tonight, we're going to be having Tina and Christine from Cape Cod Advocate. And we're going to be talking about school opening with COVID restraints, explaining the various options that are being proposed by school districts for school attendance, special education questions, how to create a good working relationship with your teachers, and more. We're going to be taking your questions. We are going to be offering some prizes tonight, or one prize. If everybody remembers the famous Cape Cod Quarantini shirt, designed by a local Cape Cod kid with our shark fin and beach ball in here. It's one of my favorite shirts. Tonight, all you have to do is submit a question for our guests this evening. And any question will do. They're here to answer your questions as best as they can. And if they don't have the information yet, we'll work on getting it for you as more information comes out. And we're not doing any kindness award tonight because I think there's a lot of important information that everybody's really looking for. And I want to make sure that we all have time for that. So thank you again for joining us. We also have our September schedule. I just want to pop it up real quick. Coming up here, next week we have Jacob Stapleton, who are welcoming back from Children's Cove to talk about body safety. That's going to be a great one. We have Alexandra Speck from Morning Mom. Definitely tune in for that. She's a riot. She's going to share some funny stories with us. And the last week in September, we're going to have Meryl Reed from Meryl's Music and Art Center talking about music education, things you can do to help support that, again, in the age of COVID and as specials have kind of somewhat changed. So without further ado, I am going to bring on the ladies now, and they are going to be joining us in a few seconds. Hello, ladies. How are you, Christine and Tina? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, and thanks so much for inviting us.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, because this is a big topic. Oh, hold on one second. Let me bring Tina back. She popped out. Hold on. Bring Tina back. There you are, Tina. It's such an important topic, and a lot of parents are struggling right now with this topic. I'm having a little trouble bringing Tina back in. We're going to keep playing with it. Don't worry. And so why don't I start off by letting you guys introduce yourselves. We'll start with Christine and then go to Tina. Go ahead, Christine.
Hi. Well, my name is Christine Riley, and I'm an education advocate. I've been practicing for over 15 years now. I started because I adopted a little boy 100 years ago now, and felt like he needed some additional support that wasn't readily available at school. So we went through that process. I didn't know what I was doing, and the story goes is that the school psychologist said, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Riley, there's nothing wrong with your son, it's your parenting. And so while I know I'm not the best parent in the world, and that certainly needed some help too, I thought that was sort of a blow off, and I got a little angry and decided to do some research and empower myself. And then that's how I grew my business, by helping other families.
And what about you, Tina?
Hi, everybody. I've been an advocate for 9 years now, working with Christine at Cape Cod Advocate. I, too, am the parent of 2 adopted children from Kazakhstan. And my son has been on an IEP since he was 3, and Chris was my advocate. And we had some rough years. And once we got through that, Chris said, you should come and be an advocate. And I thought, I never want to attend another IEP meeting in my life. And she promised me it was different with other people's kids, and she was correct. And I went to the training, and I've been working with Chris ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. So how long has Cape Cod Advocate been around for, and how many families do they work with currently?
Oh gosh. So I started the business in late 2004. And it's hard to tell how many parents we have worked with in the past, and we've lost count. But it's not uncommon for Tina and I to have a pretty hefty caseload. And it varies depending on like the season. Like June and May are high IEP season. So we're going to lots of meetings. And believe it or not, September and early October is kind of quiet.
Usually.
Usually, right? It's always usually. So special ed has always been challenging in the best of times, right? I mean, we've come a long way, I think, from it wasn't really that long ago in education and in our society that there wasn't support for that. It was only a couple decades ago, really, and well, more than a couple, several decades ago. And we've come so far in terms of inclusion and idea and No Child Left Behind. We still have so much more work to do, obviously. And now we have COVID.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, parents of both neurotypical children, as well as parents with kids with special needs of varying degrees, as you know, some are different levels than others. And it was really challenging, virtual learning and going, for me personally, I had felt like at the close of the virtual learning year in June, I was tremendously anxious and sad, to be honest with you, because I felt like everything I had advocated for and everything we had worked, I mean, in conjunction with our team and the teachers, all the things we had worked so hard for years at, I felt like it was erased in a matter of months. I felt like we regressed back, and I know we'll get back there, but I think that's made a lot of people wonder how it's going to go now. And now we're transitioning back to the fall. So can you guys tell us a little bit about what this is going to be like in the time of COVID from your area of expertise?
Tina, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot different than the spring. I think the school districts have worked really hard all summer long to plan for the fall. Not only the teachers, but certainly the administrators have been working all summer long. A lot of the special ed teachers and administrators have been working very diligently all summer long to prepare for this. And now, as you all know, we're at 170 school days versus the 180, and they're doing.
Oops.
Oh, she might have lagged out a little bit.
Different scenarios, whether that's remote, it's hybrid, or in-person learning. So they're really getting prepared, where when we shut down on the 13th of March, they weren't as prepared as they'd hoped to be. So they had been, starting to gear up, for it, but it just hit us so hard. So I think it's going to be a lot different. I think that the remote learning plans that we saw in the spring that were not robust and they didn't meet our children's needs, I think we're going to see that change for the fall. And the state has said it will change, and we will have, our students' needs will be met. So I think it'll be a big difference.
Excellent. Yeah, because a lot of the COVID restraints, and I'll give you an example, like for a child with social emotional that's working on one of their biggest needs, especially in elementary schools, is getting along with others, how to interact with others, those social skills. So like that might, how do you get around that? Because COVID restraints really start to push us away from each other, and it's going to be a different type of reaction. I mean, you see how the classrooms are set up.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, I like them better not sitting in groups, because I think my child will do better sitting by himself. I think I went to school and sat by myself in elementary school, and I was able to focus, and I had a great education. But I wonder how that will look like to work on social skills and how to engage in cooperative type things if we can't do that? Have you heard of any examples that we can kind of use to wrap our minds around what that could look like?
Well, back in the day, prior to COVID, children with social skills may have had trouble with taking turns. And so we would create a board game and learn about taking turns. This is now morphed into taking turns on Zoom, how to raise your hand, mute your microphone when you're not talking so that you're not disturbing others. Participate in school remotely, but not in bed. You know, you'd be sitting at a table, you know, not in your pajamas, in your school clothes, that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be definitely much different. There's also teachers, speech pathologists, and therapists are all working on social stories to help the kids that really have a problem understanding such a change, and that it's no longer appropriate to go up and hug your best friend. And that's breaks my heart. But I think with time and instruction and support, kids will get it. They've had almost 6 months to practice with their family, you know, not being able to see their grandparents. And when they do, it's a high five.
Elbow bump or the peace sign.
I think you'll see districts try to utilize the outdoors, and you know, they might use hula hoops for marking space and different things like that. I think that they'll be creative. I think that's part of the professional development and the brainstorming that they're doing now is how to do that. It's going to be particularly hard for the young kids.
Awesome. Yeah. So what are some of the various options that you are seeing being proposed by the districts for things like school attendance and other special ed type related entities? So
I'm going to answer that with telling the audience and you to take it with a grain of salt, because literally hour by hour, things are changing. So a few weeks ago, the state said to the school districts, you need to come up with 3 plans: in person, fully remote, and a hybrid program. And those 3 programs needed to be approved by the district school committee and then sent up to the state for approval. That process is happening. And then once it's been signed off by the state, then you're starting to see announcements by school districts that they're going hybrid, meaning that they're splitting the population into cohorts, cohort A, B, and C, for instance. Cohort A would go Monday, Tuesday. Cohort B is Thursday, Friday, and cohort C, which is typically, many times, including kids on IEPs or 504 plans that require in-person instruction, would be going 4 days a week. Okay. It also depends on the numbers of infected people in your town. So every day at 4 o'clock when the state releases their numbers, they're also releasing a map, a color-coded map. And like, for instance, Barnstable is already yellow. So if we get to red, that's a problem. Okay. So, and then each school needs to pass their ventilation for COVID requirements. And for instance, most recently, Nauset High School didn't pass, so they've decided to go fully remote because they can't guarantee clean, healthy air for COVID standards. So as other school districts, we were just talking about that. It's a different standard than it used to be. So whereas they might have passed before, or they might pass during certain times of year, they may not pass in the winter when things are shut down, or because of the new higher standard, they can't reach that standard currently. That's going to bring up a whole new issue, like we talked about. We may need new buildings. I mean, we're talking a large influx of funding in capital projects. Right, and I don't know if towns can afford it too. So that's another thing. Like, how do you come up? It's like when you have a repair due on your house. If your roof has a giant hole in it and you weren't expecting to replace your roof, that's a big ticket item that you've got to scurry and come up with the money to do it. So they're coming around, they're doing it. Absolutely. We had a question submitted anonymously. How do I protect my child that has different needs during this
strange time that we're going through.
So this, again, the state has sort of directed the school districts to reach out to parents and start partnering them. They fully expect that what a child could do in February may look very different in September when they come back to school. I think there's a lot of students, parents, teachers, administrators that are very anxious about going back into buildings. And so they're going to have to deal with that. But if you ask for a team meeting, they will schedule one. Now, normally they only have 10 school days to schedule a meeting once it's been requested by a parent. I think that's going to be extended a little bit because we're going to be inundated with requirements. But a nicely worded email to a team chair or your contact person saying, little Johnny was, confident and happy little boy, and now he's much more anxious, and I'm concerned. Let me know if there's anything I can do, or if there's a heads up that you would like me to help out on my end. I think that will help. It's really opening communication.
I think that
there's definitely, there's definitely a wait for meetings. I've been reaching out to the districts all week, and what I'm hearing is that they've got a backlog from the spring. So they're going through, expired IEPs and the team meetings that they've got to get through before they're scheduling, new requests. So if you have a request, I would send it in so you're on the list, and you'll likely meet sometime in October.
Yeah. And one of the things to keep in mind too, with that, Tina, is that in the past, they may need to hire more people to help cover this because of the COVID standards and restrictions and different things. They need some of those people who would normally be kind of participating in the testing process, actually delivering service and adhering to these standards. So I know in a lot of the schools, they're looking to hire additional people just to help with that fact.
Yep.
And back to what you said, Christine, I like what you said, because that's actually something I worked out for myself this summer. At the end of the year, our feelings teacher in our school reached out and she said, would you like to meet over the summer? I know things are tough. What can I do to help? And we met pretty much every week over the summer.
Wow.
And it wasn't only for my child, but it was for me too.
Yeah.
And she's my saving grace. Honestly, it kept me focused and positive and moving forward. And she was excellent. And you're right. A little note just goes a long way, and I know other parents who have neurotypical children, and they were submitting for, my child's having some anxiety. Is there anything we can do to help? And they were, at least at our school, they were very responsive about adding those children in and making sure to meet their needs, because even kids who might not have typically needed this type of thing before, this is a lot for our kids, and kids rebound, but this is a sustained thing. They're used to rebounding from a quick incident, not months of trauma. I mean, that's really what it is. It's a major life event. So I like that you said that, because people they're really good about working with you.
And I think they've been great. Everybody I've talked to in the last couple of weeks, they're very empathetic and supportive. And, I'm so sorry we can't have that sooner, but I'm going to get you in for a meeting as soon as we can. We're going to support so-and-so the best way we can. And, shoot an email to teachers if you have concerns, before we meet. I think they've been great. They understand the emotional toll that this has taken on everybody's children, and, who's coming into the building, and they're ready to support them.
And
absolutely.
Teachers and administrators have pretty much worked around the clock since March. They have not been to the beach, taking weeks vacation and that kind of stuff. So by October, I expect that these people are going to be exhausted because they have worked tirelessly to make sure that as much as possible, the transition back to the school in the fall is smooth. Granted, there can be some bumps, but you have to give them kudos and some grace that they're also under a great deal of stress.
Absolutely. So the key here is being flexible.
Yeah.
And knowing that we are all on the same team together and working together. So that kind of leads me into our next question. How can we create a good working relationship? What are other things we can do? I know being flexible, writing a little note, just letting them know how it's going. What are some other things we can do to create that positive working relationship right from the beginning and support them?
I think getting out in front and saying, look, I know that you're under a lot of pressure and you're working with a lot of students. What can I do to help you out, you as the teacher? I'm here to support you as well. And so whatever I can do to make your life easier, I will. And you don't always have to get along, but you need to be respectful. And so I think if you give an opportunity for them to reach out to you at any time, I always provide emails and phone numbers, and I'm here for you. I will drop whatever I'm doing so I can talk to you and help you to make your day and then ultimately my child's day better.
I think just respecting their time. I try to, send things in an email. I try to bullet things, not so wordy, just drill down to the main points or what your concerns are. And, again, like Chris said, be flexible, and, I can be available and give them the times that you're available because we need to be respectful of their time too and what they're trying to do. But I think just being open with what the concerns are up front, and then, knowing that they're doing the best that they can. They probably have kids at home too, or that are in a building or aren't in a building.
Yeah, and I think if you put in your email, like, this is not an emergency, but I would love to be able to talk to you in the next 24 to 48 hours.
That's a great way to phrase that.
Yeah.
And try to get it to the right person. If it's the feelings teacher, make sure you're getting it to the school social worker or a psychologist versus the teacher. Just try to make sure you get it to the right person to streamline that. Amy, I wanted to jump back on the attendance. I got kicked off when you were talking about attendance, but I wanted to make sure that we did talk about that attendance is going to be taken. If students are working remotely or in the hybrid on their work from home days, the attendance is going to be taken, and they're going to be expected to be on camera and present for the instruction.
So let's actually talk about that a little bit, because I know that they're going to be doing that, but I know in my parent advisory group from the superintendent, they're also, because they're being respectful of parent schedules who might be working as well. So I know that they can complete things after or at a different time, and they're going to try and allow, I don't know what the time frame is, whether it's a day to make it up, or maybe, I know they were really flexible in the spring. Like, at one point we got behind like 2 weeks because we needed, the anxiety just got so much. We had said we need a break for a couple weeks, and they said absolutely, mental health is more important. Recenter, come back, it'll be waiting. It's not an emergency. We know you've got this, and they were very supportive. So I don't know what that time frame for making up those for working parents is going to be, whether it's a day or two or a week, but I know they're looking at being able to complete them later. But as long as it gets done, I think that counts, right, as the attendance.
I'm going to say that's probably student specific and situation specific, and district specific as well. I mean, certainly in the spring, the state, DESE had said it's, mental health first, and, all of that, and that trumped everything. And now we're going to be a little bit more centered towards those academics and grades and output and making sure that students are working to the curriculum expectations, and that teachers are teaching to those expectations. So it's definitely going to look different than it did in the spring, but I think it's going to be district specific.
I would agree, Tina. I would also probably say that if you're in doubt, look at their attendance record and pretend it's like you're out for a doctor's appointment or that you weren't able to go to school. Some schools are giving you a day to make up, and some are giving you a week. So just verify it ahead of time.
And it might be a good idea, especially for the working parents, to just shoot an email. Like you said, when you have time, I just want to let you know I'm going to have a work schedule like this, and we won't be able to do remote learning on Thursday afternoons, but we're more than happy to make it up over the weekend. And I think, like you said, as long as you're upfront and say it's due to this or this, I think they'll be really good. We have a quick question here from Mara. She wants to know, has a decision been made at the state level regarding MCAS?
For this year?
Not
That's
yet.
for this year.
All hands are on deck just to get the school year started, and I think they kicked the MCAS decision down the road a little bit. But don't you worry, it won't get lost, and people will make a decision soon.
The SATs have been canceled. I mean, I know my daughter's been enrolled 3 times, and those have officially been canceled through October.
I mean, personally, I would love to see us kind of get away from a test focus. I think it's an opportunity where, as much as it doesn't feel like an opportunity, we're being given a very big opportunity to maybe start to think about changing the way education works with opportunities like outside learning, or kind of getting a little more creative and getting away from this test culture, maybe more portfolio based or things like that. And it's an opportunity to be, maybe think outside the box, and maybe some of these kids will, or maybe all of them could perform better. And wow, look at that. COVID actually gave us a blessing. I mean, it could happen. I hope.
Yeah, the way education looks and is provided today could look very different in the future. Yeah.
It's kind of exciting if
Absolutely.
you think of it that way.
You know,
Tina, you cut out for a second.
education.
Can you repeat that, Tina, real quick?
I was making fun of our age for Chris and I, but you know, there was one way of being educated back when we were in school. Now there's so many different ways of getting a diploma and getting through your school career. So it is exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for families that are, if they're, whether they choose virtual or have a hybrid model on virtual, or the kids, as we know, there's some schools now that are making the transition, and I'm sure we're going to hear about more as some of the HVAC reports come back in, have to go virtual. And how, for some special service needs, how can that be met realistically doing virtual? Because there are some things that I can't wrap my head around how they will adapt it, but I know they're getting creative, but.
Yeah, I think again, it's a work in progress, and it's going to be trial and error. I know that there's been some suggestions that speech and language pathologists, for instance, are going to be Zooming with their students. That's probably a little easier than somebody that needs OT or PT supports. So they're just going to have to work around it and be a bit flexible and think outside of the box. I think that, I don't know if anybody's seen on the news, but there's a music teacher that has created their own music bags for each one of their students. And so I wouldn't be surprised that gets morphed into an OT person providing a little kit that you would work with at home as they're instructing. So
what about like if a student has an academic aide or a full-time aide the majority of the school day? And again, that looked very different in the spring because it was different. We weren't ready for it, and we've had time to prepare. How will that look? And so I'll pose you the question because my superintendent wasn't quite sure either. They're working on that. But I think about, okay, let's say a student does have an aide and they are virtual. How can that aide be working with that student while he or she is learning from the whole class instruction at the same time? Because in the past, they would be right by them or circulating the room because you don't want to single them out or anything like that. So how, with Zoom and things like that, how will they do that? And when I brought that up, they were like, oh, that's that's an interesting point. And, we don't think of these things until we, like you said, we start to learn trial by fire.
yeah.
So that would be one that's one I can't quite, because you got to protect privacy, but you also have to, I don't know how you do it.
Tina, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly either because we haven't gotten to the 16th or the 17th or the 19th, whatever your district or whenever they're opening. We haven't exactly gotten there, and a lot of administrators have said the same thing when I've asked that we don't really know yet. Same with co-taught classrooms. How's that going to work? In my mind, it's a breakout that there's the whole class instruction, and then, the student who has a one-to-one might be in a breakout session through that Zoom where it's just the educational assistant and the student working together, and then they can go back into the whole group once the concept was retaught or they work through some of the problems and, you know, there was some mastery of the skill. That's how it will work in my mind.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense, having a breakout like that. And I wonder if they'll also bring in other kids depending on the different needs to,
Yeah.
especially if there's that social that type of goal as well in there, maybe having smaller groups. That I didn't even think of that. So I'm glad you actually said that, because that totally makes sense to me.
I think if your child is afforded a one-to-one aid, that is a topic of conversation that should be addressed pretty quickly. And so a quick email to the team chair saying, hey, just checking in. I know you've got a lot on your plate. How have we figured out how is this going to work? Because John does need the support of a one-to-one aid. And I anticipate he'll need that regardless of what format he's going to be in.
But also, you know, students who have one-to-one aides are considered higher needs, so they would be welcome into the building more than some of the other peers if the family decides to do that. So, you know, if the family says, no, you know, we're immune compromised or we're not comfortable with that, we're going to do fully remote or the hybrid, that's how I would see that working.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's going to look different based on the family choice. Yeah. Absolutely. Can you explain, this was a question actually submitted twice. They want to know how masks would be covered under the law for a child with different needs. And then I'll get to the second part of that.
So the state, the DESE, has recommended that kids second grade and above wear masks at all times, with the understanding that they have the ability to do that. And they're not sensory impacted or have a disability that would impact their ability to successfully wear masks. If you have a student that is just learning how to tolerate that, then we, as advocates, would recommend creating training or a goal around hygiene and wearing a mask and that kind of thing. Some school districts have become even more enthusiastic and said, regardless of what grade you're in, you're going to be wearing a mask. You're going to wear a mask no matter what if you're on the bus. Yeah. So I think it's going to take some time and a group effort to make sure that these students understand. There is talk that those students may also be able to wear the face guard as opposed to just the mask if they can tolerate that. Mm-hmm. So we're already trying to troubleshoot and see what would work and what doesn't work.
Yeah. That's going to be the toughest part, I think. I really do. And there's no great answer. I mean, I've had several clients try to get a medical waiver for the mask. They're just really not giving them out. It's going to be a tough one. But like Chris said, having a goal wrapped around that in the face of COVID is really, I think, how we'll combat that.
Absolutely. What are the things that could be in the IEP with this mask? And you actually kind of answered it. The follow-up question was, what are things that should be in the IEP to protect your child, but also protect the classroom? So you talked about possibly face shields and some other things as well. I think I saw, where did I see there was another type of mask that was a neck one. I don't know, but you had a see-through cut. There were different types.
Yeah. I don't think they'll allow the neck.
The gaiters
anymore. The gaiters.
Did you see the woman? She's from from the Cape. She won the new mask design as part of a COVID grant, and it's made with double cotton. And she put elastics in it, and it's got the cotton as opposed to the other material, which was not good. And it pulls up and down and looks like a scarf. I'll have to find the link. It's so I think what in our reopening thing is we had brought up the gaiters, and them right after the information came out, and they said, well, I wonder, could they have them though if it was the cotton, if somebody made something like that? And everybody I talked to was like, oh, I haven't done that. That might be difficult. And then I happened across this article a couple of days ago, and this woman had won this whole thing. I'm pretty sure she's on the Cape.
Wow.
I'm going to find it.
Great.
Yeah, I'll have to find and send it out later. But I was like, that actually meets the requirements with the double cotton, the elastic, and it was really flexible, and it was actually more comfortable because people could talk better because it created a whole seal around here.
Oh,
So you
wow.
could hear better. Yeah, I was amazed by this. They're working on kids' colors, so she had them only in women's right now.
So there are people in.
I'll definitely help you find that.
There are people in the schools called behaviorists or BCBAs, and they would be ideal in creating a program to teach a child how to tolerate or use a mask and when to use it and when to ask for a break and that kind of stuff. So get them involved. I think this would be a great idea for the BCBA to help us come up with a plan to teach our child how to tolerate.
Absolutely. Can you, let's see, this kind of goes along with the mask. Can you explain how masks would be covered under the law for a child with different needs? Oh, no, we actually just talked. I'm so sorry. I'm rereading it. Can you explain how people can access their services if they don't have the income to afford it? Are there resources they can use to help them pay for it? So I think they're talking about maybe if they've withdrawn maybe to homeschool. I'm not sure where that question's exactly coming from, but or maybe they're talking about in general additional services if you needed something like Spalding and you couldn't afford it.
So if you're homeschooling and you have a child on an IEP, IEP services can still be provided. Again, it requires some conversations and out of the box thinking, how can we make this work? So again, reach out to your school district. First, make sure that homeschool plan is approved, and then say, oh, and by the way, we've got a child that needs reading services, so how can we work towards that? We're going to look for the district to provide those supports. Spalding Rehab, your health insurance many times will cover OT, speech, PT, those type of services. And if they may have been asking about advocates, if you're looking for advocates, low-cost advocates, the Federation for Children with Special Needs, which is based in Boston, trains many people to be advocates. And part of their programming is to help newly minted advocates to get experience and guidance. So if you have a need, feel free to call the Federation. There's a advocate hotline that is manned Monday through Friday. They can answer basic questions and give you some directions. And if your case is complicated and you feel like they need the help of an advocate, they will assign an advocate at no cost.
Awesome. Do health insurance cover typically advocates or no? See, that's something we should fight for. Health insurance should cover that.
We should say not yet. Not yet.
We're going to work on that. That's my next project once I'm done with outdoor classroom.
Deal.
I want it. That'll be next summer. We had a question submitted that I sent you guys ahead of time. Our school's electing for a virtual day, and it's not due to a COVID closure. My child has extreme difficulty learning online. I didn't send you the rest of this question, but they said the screen time can make it worse for their disability. Do I have rights to refuse to participate or have adjustments made for my child on those days?
Tina, do you want to jump in?
I'm trying to understand the question. So they're closed for non-COVID reasons?
Yes. So our school's closing for a virtual day midweek. And I know some of the upper grades in some of the districts are doing that, not due to a COVID closure. And it says, my child had extreme difficulty learning online in the spring. And she says her daughter has extreme difficulty as a result of the screen time. It aggravates the disability. Do I have rights to refuse to participate in that, or can I advocate for something?
I would advocate that the child has higher needs and needs to be in the building more and less on screen. That's what I would be advocating for, more time in the building.
Yeah. That's one of the things I kind of worry about, the screen time. And I think it's great that they've gotten out these Chromebooks and other things. Did you know the Chromebooks don't, because they're older, don't have the blue light blocker?
Oh, really?
So, yeah, one of the things I brought up was like maybe we can get glasses for the kids that might be more sensitive, but it does bring up the question because we've talked for years about screen time actually being detrimental. And I know that kind of went more with video games and TV. But even as adults, I work in front of a computer all day. I know I get tired from my eyes. And I have a family member, a little girl who's in elementary school, and she actually, because of too much screen time, not because of this, but prior, had to get glasses and has to have OT therapy now because of the amount of screen time. So again, that might be something we have to just watch. I mean, it could be a negative effect for some kids, but we're going to have to work on advocating for them and paying close attention, right?
Yeah, and maybe the glasses are a good solution. By May, my 17-year-old had ordered them through Amazon, and they came in. I said, "What are you wearing?" And so she had ordered them up too. And I mean, maybe the district could get a good discount ordering in bulk, and that should be an accommodation made to all students.
Yeah, and I also think that now school districts are planning on having breaks throughout the day, so it's not continuous. So, maybe it's the first 30 minutes of instruction and then turn it off, turn it away. And hopefully that'll help this eye strain.
It's that asynchronous or synchronous learning that, came out a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And that also means us as parents and families, we have to do our part too, because, and I'm guilty of it. I've said it many times. I'm guilty sometimes of using the screen as mom needs to get, especially in the spring, I need to get work done. You're doing work, but I'm on a Zoom meeting for my own. Go watch a movie. It's a rainy day. And so I think because they're going to be getting an increased amount, and even though they're getting breaks, as parents, we have to be really present at the end of their school day when we're there and say, we're not going to watch TV during the week at all, period, because you've had enough screen time. Let's play a board game as a family. Let's read a book. Let's go outside and do something in the backyard on, your homemade Ninja Warrior course, whatever works. But I think it's a team effort and being flexible, and we all have to do our part. And I know it's hard because, again, I'm guilty of it too, but we have to do our part.
Parents, though, if they're not working from home and they're out of the home and the children are home doing the learning on their own, and then they got to come home and follow up to make sure they did it. This is a lot on not only on the kids and the teachers, but it's a lot on parents.
Yeah, I agree. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And it's all right to tell the school, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. I can't help as much as I need to because, Jack, for instance, is not as independent as he needs to be. Because if you don't communicate that to the school, they're going to assume everything is good. So it's all right to be vulnerable and share what you're experiencing.
And keep in mind, I mean, the kids are used to what happened in the spring. So it's going to take them some time. They've been out of learning for months and months. It's going to take them time to build up their stamina here.
Absolutely. It's a strange new world, and we're all going to have to give each other, you used a good term earlier, give them grace. And I think we all just need to do that and give each other that kind of space and say, it's okay. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. But we're all going through something. So you can kind of take comfort. And someone's probably sharing your pain at that moment.
Absolutely.
A lot of people.
And a forum like Cape Cod Moms, where everybody's here to support each other, this is a great place to sort of let your hair down and explain what's going on. Because there's people who are going to say, yeah, I live that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Someone somewhere has had something similar. At least one person with all these people on the planet. I mean, at least one person has shared something. One of the things that came up was talking about how the kids have regressed, not just both neurotypical and I know what was it? The state put out like a tracker for parents to kind of start tracking that regression. And is that a good, because I downloaded it actually from the state, this regression tracker. And is that a good thing for some parents to maybe think about doing and just kind of keeping track of their own kids to have prepared?
This is the wonderful opportunity because parent involvement is critical to success, and especially right now. So writing down what your child and what you experienced this spring, what were the positives and what were the negatives or the hurdles, and be fair about it, and then share that with the school. So many times they'll say, Jack can do a word problem with 100% independence. And when it came down to the COVID time, you needed to sit down and provide 100% scaffolding. So you need to communicate that. So, so I think explaining what you saw. In addition, the school districts are going to be doing benchmark assessments and trying to figure out where everybody is. Where were they when they left in March? And how did they perform during the closures in the spring? And then they're going to talk about, okay, so Jack, for instance, didn't do as well as we expected, and he actually regressed. So we're going to up maybe some of the services. Or change expectations, or tweak that IEP to meet his needs.
And I would, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tina, do you want to talk about COVID compensatory services?
Yeah, I would just add to that, just to be, leave the emotion out of it and just be very specific about, what sort of assistance the student needed or your child needed and how much support they needed provided to them. If you keep the emotion out of it, and you just stick with the facts as far as the academics, I think that will get it a lot further. The compensatory.
Can you explain what that is, just for people who might not know?
So normally, if services are missed, so let's pretend a speech and language pathologist is out on maternity leave, and the school district didn't make any alternative arrangements, and your son missed 3 sessions of speech. The district then would need to compensate that child for 3 sessions worth of speech. And it used to be a 1-to-1 ratio. Mm-hmm. Compensatory COVID services or COVID compensatory services may look a little different. It just identifies that services were missed and that we need to make them up, but they may not have a 1-to-1 relationship. They may be, we're going to give an extra 6 hours or an extra 20 minutes for the next 4 months to see how that child does.
And they'll probably do that after they assess, right, where they're kind of at, to see what kind of service they need to make up for that.
And this is going to be a hot topic. The school districts have to identify students and come up with plans by the mid-December. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I think that's so that school districts have an opportunity to meet with all these parents and figure out what kids need and what adjustments need to be made to the IEPs.
Yeah, and like Chris said, it used to be a 1-to-1. I don't think it's going to be like that anymore. They don't have the staff and the time to do all of that. So I don't think, I'm pretty sure, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that they wanted the services done by the end of 2021, the compensatory services. So, I mean, there's some time there to get it done. And certainly anything can be negotiated with a team. But it also we could be adding goals to an IEP based on some of that regression and the difference of the student's performance and abilities.
The takeaway is it's going to be individualized based on the specific child's needs and what they experienced. And maybe that's the time to start thinking outside of the box for next summer, for summer services next year. That's a great time to sort of make up for lost time.
I was just going to say, could they look at doing that type of service throughout the summer?
Summer vacations. I mean, anything, could be negotiated that way whenever they have the staff to give those services.
Just get it in writing, whatever the district is proposing.
Okay.
But I think this is where the parent involvement is key in this. And, like I said, keeping that emotion out and sticking with the facts. I mean, really, your input, the state has said, is very valuable here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they don't know unless we tell them. And it was funny. when we first started with our advisory committee, they were talking about how great some of the kids did at virtual. They were like, a lot of kids did so much better. And I remember them even telling me that about my child. And I kind of sheepishly raised my hand, and because I'm willing to admit it. And I know there's a lot of us out there. A lot of us, there were certain points where it was a tough day. And you know what? Might have done the assignment.
Okay.
Might have called it a day and just said, that paper's come back to me 3 times. It's still a 1. Okay, well, I'll just do it because it wasn't worth the battle that was going on. And again, the focus was different then for mental health. But I remember that coming up and I go, well, caveat.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of us actually did the work? And the superintendent's looking at me like, sorry. But
sometimes it's not worth the battle. I mean, sometimes you just need to have some peace in your house. And what's it going to matter in 20 years? I wish I said that to myself more when my kids were younger. Like, is this going to matter in 20 years? Because at 17 and 20 now, I know that it really didn't. But it's hard in the moment to walk away.
Right.
But
I think we all have to allow for
that. Say, Uncle, we had a bad night, or we had a bad day, or I had an emergency at work and I could not provide that support today. And and be honest. Be willing to acknowledge your faults as well as the school district. So if you're going to complain, be sure to say, I may have contributed in some way, or
absolutely.
Maybe I don't understand what I was supposed to do.
Right, because we're being asked as parents to kind of step into a role that, we weren't trained for. We didn't get schooling on. I mean, yes, we've had children. There's no training on that. There's no handbook on that. There's no class other than, hey, you're going to give birth and this is what it's going to look like on the video, some of that. But we're being thrown into a position that for many people, unless you have a background in it, I have a background in it and I still struggled. And it's hard sometimes to teach your own kid too.
Yeah.
And, but again, being honest about that conversation and just saying, hey, I couldn't do what needed to be done. I'm struggling. Help me. And asking for that help.
And there's no shame in that. We've been with these people for months now. I love seeing other people. We've been together a long time. And, it's okay. They're on our last nerve. It's okay that you had a bad day and you can just say that. And, it's fine. It really is fine.
Absolutely. 2 more questions I just want to share. Lyra wants to know, and I don't know if this falls with you ladies, some districts COVID tested teachers Monomoy day 1, others aren't setting that baseline. Is it worth advocating for that with the school districts? I know this is a little outside the special education, but.
So it's a little outside our realm, but I would say that it's probably a union-specific negotiated tool. So certainly raise concerns to the superintendent, but know that their hands may be tied to it. May be a union matter. I think there is strong protocols no matter what that, and I've already heard that nurses are going to be sending staff and students home very quickly this year. If there is any doubt, you're going home. And because they
said the first part of the year is going to kind of look like that. And it's going to be very medieval, draconian almost. But by the time we get to the spring, we should have, as we come out of that winter, because winter's going to be tough.
Yeah.
There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we have to be cautious. So I think spring, but we'll have hit a rhythm, I'm hoping, to move through that. Another one so what are the pods learning? I don't know if this relates. Maybe she means that Kelly, if she relates to special ed. So if a parent is teaming up in a pod, and we kind of touched about that before, even if you're in pod learning, whether it's homeschool or virtual, you can still be provided supports. They just might look different or be on a different schedule than before.
And again, communicate to the school district that you have a child who is staying outside of the building for whatever reason, and they're doing this pod instruction, meaning that a small group of families are supporting each other, sort of like a homeschool hybrid model. And that the child needs special ed services, and we're looking for the district to provide those.
Yeah, and I've had that happen with a couple high school students just this past week, and we've reached out to the districts to try to get those kids in the same cohort because some of them were in different cohorts, so it just made it a little more streamlined and easier if they were in the same. So, but they're not wanting to make a lot of changes. This was, a giant puzzle that they had to put together. So I would ask sooner rather than later for those adjustments to be made if you already know who your pods are.
Absolutely. So I just did the random.org out of our 3 questions submitted during the live time, and Kelly Hayek was our winner. So we're going to get her Cape Cod Quarantini shirt. Kelly, I'll message you after the show. Lucky you, I have 2 too. And I want to just put up your website right here. Let me actually put it on the title one because it'll look bigger. CapeCodAdvocate.com. And people can reach out to you for your services. You have a great team. Any closing final thoughts from you ladies for joining me?
Well, I'd like to plug Cape Cod Advocate. If you are interested, we are social media present. So we follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And we do blogs regularly. If you want to join our mailing list, we'll send out you a blog post and keep you posted on special ed related matters. And then, Tina, do you want to go over like our best pieces of advice for parents?
So sorry, it froze on me.
So do you want to talk about advice for parents? Like I always say, like, be respectful and transparent. What would you suggest?
Yeah, definitely those things. I think, be kind to yourself, honestly. We're not meant to know everything in special ed. And, Chris and I came into this from having our own children associated with special education, and it's our passion now. But that's why people like us exist, because we know the laws and the regulations. But I think we've all had a tough couple of months. I think be kind to yourself, be kind to your kids, laugh with them, have fun with them. We will get through this. We will get them educated. It's tough because you see the time slipping away, especially some of our older students, and we know that, and we can help you put systems in place for those kids that are transitional ages. But there is time to make some of this stuff up, and they're not alone.
And trust your gut. If something doesn't seem right, expose it, explain this doesn't make sense to me, so that people will come and help and assist you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask why. Just keep asking why.
Why? And put it in writing, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I want to thank both Christine and Tina so much for joining us. I think you guys would be great to have on again as a guest, maybe towards the end of October, early November, to kind of re-look at all this again. Thank you to our whole audience for tuning in. You can catch the replays live, or not live, but on our website and on Instagram. And we'll bring the ladies back again to do some more questions once school really gets rolling. Ladies, do not click off. Just hold tight. Just going to say goodbye, and it'll close down, but we'll keep going. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Join us next week. We'll be with Jacob Stapleton. You can submit your questions ahead of time on our link tree, which is on our Instagram or on our website and our Facebook. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. See you next week.